Why the sudden disappearance from the business?
Well, it wasn't really sudden. I just, pregnancy isn't sudden. I had two babies since then, and I sort of slithered out. You know, I
But at
eased
that point,
myself
were your
out.
records?
On a rainy night in August 1969, a young woman walked onto the Woodstock stage with only a guitar, a trembling voice, and the courage to face nearly 500,000 people. She had no famous name, no band behind her, and no idea that she was about to create music history. Her name was Melanie Safka, a 22-year-old singer from Queens who was terrified by the endless crowd and the pouring rain. She believed the audience might leave, but they stayed. As she sang in the darkness, thousands of candles appeared across the hillside, creating one of the most unforgettable images of Woodstock. That night, Melanie became a symbol of the festival's spirit, but after reaching incredible success, the woman who sang to 500,000 people slowly disappeared from the spotlight. This is the untold story of Melanie Safka. Chapter 1. Before Woodstock, the girl from Queens. Long before the fame, Melanie Ann Safka was just a young girl growing up in Astoria, Queens, New York. Music surrounded her from the beginning. Her mother, Pauline "Polly" Safka, was a jazz singer who performed in local clubs. She introduced Melanie to the sounds of blues, jazz, and classic vocalists. As a child, Melanie was fascinated by performing. By the age of 4, she was already singing publicly. She appeared on a radio program and performed with a ukulele, showing a confidence that surprised people around her. Music was not something she discovered later in life. It was always part of who she was. When her family moved to New Jersey, Melanie continued developing her talent. As a teenager, she performed at a small coffee house called the Inkwell, singing folk songs for hours at a time. She was not chasing fame, she was simply learning. She studied acting at the American Academy of Dramatic Arts in New York, but the music scene of Greenwich Village kept pulling her back. The folk clubs became her classroom. She watched performers, wrote songs, and developed a style that was impossible to categorize. She was emotional but powerful, gentle but fearless, different from everyone else, and eventually, the music industry noticed. Chapter 2. The Record Deal and the man who believed in her. Melanie's journey into professional music almost happened by accident. She originally went to a building for an acting audition, but because of a misunderstanding, she ended up in the office of a music publisher. Instead of leaving, she sat down and sang. That simple moment changed her life. People recognized something special in her voice. In 1967, Melanie signed with Columbia Records. She released early songs like Beautiful People and Garden in the City, but the relationship did not last. Columbia did not fully understand what to do with her. They saw potential, but they did not see the artist she could become. Then came Buddha Records. This was where Melanie met producer Peter Schekeryk. Peter saw something unique in her. He understood that Melanie was not just another folk singer. She had her own world. Their professional relationship became personal, and in 1968 they married. Peter became her producer, manager, and creative partner. Together they would build one of the most interesting careers in music. Her first album, Born to Be, arrived in 1968. It did not immediately make her a superstar, but Melanie was building something. And then came the moment that changed everything. Woodstock. Chapter 3. Woodstock. The night she became a legend. In August 1969, Melanie was almost unknown in America. She was not even originally scheduled as one of the main Woodstock performers, but fate placed her there. She arrived at the festival by helicopter and saw something impossible to comprehend. Hundreds of thousands of people, a massive stage, a sea of faces, rain covering everything. For a young artist, it was overwhelming. Melanie later admitted she was terrified. She waited backstage as the weather became worse. She thought the audience might leave. She hoped the rain would save her from performing. But nobody left. The crowd stayed. And then Melanie walked onto the stage alone. No band, no special effects, just her voice and an acoustic guitar. She sat down in a folding chair and began singing. The audience listened. A young woman who had never faced anything like this before was suddenly performing for one of the largest crowds in music history. During her performance, something magical happened. Members of the hog farm commune handed out candles among the audience. Slowly, thousands of lights appeared across the dark field. The rain continued falling, the music continued playing, and the entire hillside became a sea of flames. Melanie never forgot that moment. She later wrote "Lay Down, Candles in the Rain" about the experience. Released in 1970, the song became one of her biggest successes. It reached the top 10 in America. The album, "Candles in the Rain," became a worldwide hit. Suddenly, Melanie Safka was famous, but her greatest success was still ahead. Chapter 4: The Girl with the Roller Skates. The early 1970s became Melanie's golden era. She released songs that connected with millions of people. "Look What They've Done to My Song Ma" became one of her signature songs. Artists like Nina Simone and Ray Charles later covered it, but the biggest moment came with a song nobody expected. "Brand New Key." The song sounded simple. It was cheerful, almost playful. It told the story of a girl on roller skates. Many critics underestimated it. Some radio stations even questioned whether the lyrics had hidden meanings, but audiences loved it. The song became a massive hit. It reached #1 on the Billboard Hot 100. By 1972, Melanie was one of the biggest female artists in America. Billboard named her the top-selling female artist of the year. She had achieved something remarkable. A woman who once sat alone on a rainy Woodstock stage was now a worldwide star. But fame in the music industry can disappear quickly, and Melanie's relationship with the industry was complicated. Chapter 5: When the spotlight started fading. After the incredible success of Brand New Key, Melanie Safka's career began entering a new and more complicated chapter. She had reached the highest level of fame, but the same qualities that made her special also made her difficult for the music industry to define. Melanie never fit into a simple category. She was too emotional for some critics, too honest for an industry built around carefully created images, and too unique to be placed into one specific genre. She was not a traditional rock star. She was not only a folk singer. She was an artist who followed her own instincts. The music business often rewarded artists who could adapt to changing trends, but Melanie refused to change who she was just to remain popular. She continued writing personal songs and creating music that reflected her own experiences. After 1973, her chart success in America began to decline. The radio stations that once played her biggest hits slowly moved on, and mainstream attention faded. But Melanie herself never disappeared. While American audiences became less focused on her music, international fans remained loyal. Countries like Germany, France, and the Netherlands continued supporting her work and celebrating her performances. She kept releasing albums, she kept performing live, she kept writing songs. The spotlight may have moved away from Melanie Safka, but her passion for music never weakened. She was not forgotten by the people who truly understood her artistry. She was simply no longer standing at the center of the mainstream stage. Chapter 6: A Life Beyond Fame. For Melanie Safka, success was never only measured by fame, record sales, or chart positions. Music was always something deeper, a way to express herself, connect with people, and share emotions that words alone could not explain. Her greatest partnership was with Peter Schekeryk. Together, they built a life centered around creativity, family, and music. They raised 3 children, and all of them eventually followed their own musical paths, continuing the artistic legacy their parents had created. Even after her biggest commercial successes had passed, Melanie's talent never disappeared. In 1989, she received one of the most important recognitions of her career when she won a Primetime Emmy Award for writing the theme song "The First Time I Loved Forever" for the television series Beauty and the Beast. The award proved that her songwriting ability was still powerful. The world had not lost interest because she lacked talent. It had simply stopped looking closely enough. Melanie continued touring for decades, performing for longtime fans and discovering new audiences. She shared stages with younger artists and introduced her music to generations who were not even alive when she made history at Woodstock. Her career was no longer about chasing fame, it was about leaving behind a lasting connection through her songs. Chapter 7: Losing the Person Who Changed Everything. In 2010, Melanie Safka faced the deepest heartbreak of her life. Her husband, producer, and longtime creative partner, Peter Schekeryk, passed away from a heart attack. Their relationship had lasted for more than 4 decades, built on love, trust, and a shared passion for music. Peter was more than just her husband. He was the person who believed in Melanie when many others failed to understand her unique talent. He helped shape her career, guided her through the challenges of the music industry, and stood beside her during every major moment. He was there when she stepped onto the Woodstock stage. He was there when her songs became worldwide hits. He was there during the difficult years when fame began to fade. Losing Peter left a painful emptiness in Melanie's life, but she continued creating music. Because throughout every success and every struggle, music had always been the one thing that carried her forward. Chapter 8: The Final Song. Even in her 70s, Melanie Safka never allowed time to silence her voice. While many artists from her generation had stepped away from the stage, Melanie continued performing, writing, and connecting with audiences around the world. Music was never just a career for her. It was the language through which she expressed her emotions and shared her story. In 2022, Melanie embarked on what would become her final tour. She returned to the Netherlands, a country that had embraced her music since the beginning of her career. Long before she became known worldwide, Dutch audiences had supported her songs and remained loyal through every chapter of her life. Thousands of fans came to see her perform one more time. She was 75 years old, but the passion was still there. The voice that once echoed across the massive fields of Woodstock was still filled with warmth, honesty, and emotion. In January 2024, Melanie was still working on new music. She was preparing another album, proving that even after more than 5 decades in the industry, she remained a true artist. She was still creating, still recording, and still following the same passion that had guided her since childhood. On January 23, 2024, Melanie Safka passed away at the age of 76. Her children shared the news and asked fans around the world to light candles in her memory. It was a beautiful tribute, because decades earlier, candles shining through the rain had created the most unforgettable moment of her career, and in the end, those lights continued to represent the spirit of Melanie Safka, a woman whose music never truly faded. The legend, history, almost forgot. Melanie Safka's story was never truly about disappearing. It was about resilience, passion, and the courage to continue creating even when the world stopped watching. Throughout her entire career, Melanie remained an artist who refused to become something the music industry demanded her to be. She never followed trends just to stay famous. Instead, she followed her heart, wrote honestly, and created songs filled with emotion and meaning. From the moment she stepped onto the Woodstock stage, Melanie proved that true artistry does not always require fame, perfection, or a carefully designed image. Standing alone in front of nearly 500,000 people, she turned her fear into a historic performance that would become one of the defining moments of the festival. She had no band, no elaborate production, and no superstar reputation. She had only her voice, her guitar, and the courage to share her music with the world. Her songs continued to live long after the spotlight faded. Lay Down, Candles in the Rain, captured the spirit of Woodstock. Look What They've Done to My Song Ma became a timeless classic covered by other legendary artists. Brand New Key proved that a simple and joyful song could reach millions of people around the world. Yet despite these achievements, Melanie Safka was never remembered on the same level as some of her contemporaries. Her name slowly became less familiar to mainstream audiences. Perhaps it was because she never chased celebrity status. She never tried to create a false image or become someone she was not. She was too unique to fit into a single category. She was a folk singer. She was a pop artist. She was a songwriter. She was a storyteller. Most importantly, she was simply Melanie.
If you enjoy this documentary, then like and subscribe our channel. Thank you.